Welcome back. Still here with us is Didier Chaudet. Didier, thanks so much for staying with us. Going off of what we were talking about right before the break, could we see these protests shifting the balance of power with what we've seen with Nazarbayev's influence, perhaps, and his family's influence across the government? And could this lead to some kind of reshuffling that would go on, that would maybe ensure that some of these members leave their key positions and open up potential avenues for economic growth then? Do you see that happening, or do you see things going back to the way they were?
Oh, if you talk about a change of a political guard, it's already there. In 2019, you had a new president, but still, Nazarbayev was the one in charge. He was the father of a nation. He was at the head of the Security Council, and he had the possibility to veto a lot of ideas from the new president, President Tokayev. Now it's over. President Tokayev is in charge, and President Nazarbayev doesn't have a say, or maybe not as a say as strong as he could have. I do think that his political role is more or less over. It doesn't mean that it will go bad for him or for his family or for the people around him. What is still pretty good in the whole situation for Kazakhstan is to say that this transition has been relatively non-violent, which is not always the case in authoritarian regimes. Of course, it would have been better if it would have stayed in the situation of 2019, but the political and economic situation didn't make it possible. And at some point, there was need of a clarification. Do we have two heads at the head of Kazakhstan or one? Now it is clear we have one. President Tokayev has made sure to get rid of his main adversary, who was a protege of Nazarbayev, Karim Masimov. He was at the head of the security services, a Kazakh Uyghur, and he didn't become president himself just because of his mixed heritage. He was seen as Uyghur, not as Kazakh. But at the end of the day, now this potential adversary has been pushed aside, might be condemned for treason by President Tokayev, and the people in charge now will be clearly pro-Tokayev. The person in charge nowadays of security services since a few days ago is a Tokayev loyalist. So now the state is under the control of one person, one group. Does it mean a change in terms of on the economic situation? Not necessarily, because it is a political change. It doesn't mean a change of the economic structure, and here it might be problematic. Tokayev might be interested to look at China to get inspired by the idea of targeting corrupt groups, corrupt people. And to try to make sure that the less fortunate are not forgotten, because if they continue to be forgotten, it's not the last protest we'll see.
I mean, he did also fall back on Russian help in the midst of all of this. Do you see that reliance continue to grow, or do you see this as just a temporary stopgap solution to help quell the protests?
Well, it is a geopolitical risky move. But I think he had to take it to make sure that things go his way quickly. There was a risk in southern Kazakhstan, in particular in Almaty, to see the police, the security forces, to accept their loss too quickly in front of the protesters. Things have gone very fast at the beginning of this year, and there was a risk. President Tokayev didn't want to find himself in a situation like in Syria. The Syrian fear has been extremely strong in the Kazakhstanese elite now for many, many years. So the goal was to show to the protesters, but also to show to his political opponents that he had strong support from the side of Moscow, that they will not be involved to cast him aside. There was an idea for a while that Moscow was closer to Nazarbayev and to Tokayev, but things have been changing recently and things have been confirmed now. Of course, as the Americans are saying, when you bring the Russians in, you don't know when they are going out. But I think that this judgment is maybe a little hasty or a little unfair. Kazakhstan is not Ukraine. There is this debate about the relationship between Russia and the Russian minority in Kazakhstan and northern Kazakhstan. And it is true that since the beginning of the 1990s, the Russians have seen northern Kazakhstan as actually part of Russia. But the tensions nowadays with the West are so strong around Ukraine that it will be a folly for the Russians to play the separatist card in Kazakhstan and to play the division of Ukraine at the same time. So I don't think they will go this way, but there is always a risk. There is always a risk on the longer term, and President Tokayev will have to be very careful about how he uses his alliance with Russia. In the longer term, it will not please the Kazakh nationalists, and the average Kazakh nationalist is the average Kazakh citizen.
But what is the Kremlin's stake in all of this then, if it's not for geopolitical stability? I mean, I'm assuming that is the primary reason, but you'd mentioned obviously that there might be a minority Russian population in the country as well. Is that which of these factors is weighing in on the Kremlin's involvement in all of this?
Well, if we talked about some Russian political forces, including some which are pretty close to Moscow, there is these desires to grab northern Kazakhstan at some point, but it's not the way the Kremlin sees it. I think especially now, I think there was more a desire to show to Central Asia, and to Central Asia in general, to Kazakhstan in particular, we are your main security protection. You cannot turn toward China. It is your economic support, not your security support. You cannot turn towards Turkey, that doesn't have a means to protect you. You only have us, the Russian military, us, the Russian big brother. And this approach is pretty clever for the longer term, and it has been something that has been done all over Central Asia. Look at the relationship between Russia and Tajikistan right now about the Afghan issue. It's all about making sure Tajikistan stays under control, under Russian control, under Russian influence, making sure that Central Asia stays the near abroad from a Russian point of view, under the primary influence of Russia. So for now, there is not necessarily a desire to grab some territories or things like that. But this is an idea that some Russian nationalists have, and some Kazakhstanis Russian separatists have too. So President Tokayev will have to be very careful about that. There are other political forces at play than just the president of Kazakhstan and the president of Russia. You have nationalists also in both sides, right, and you have some separatists in Kazakhstan also.
But does Russia risk stepping on China's toes? Because you obviously, I mean, I don't know if it would be fair to then say that China actually does have a stake in the country through the Belt and Road Initiative, that it has pumped billions of dollars into the economy to sort of make sure that it's a bridge between China and the rest of Europe. So is there any potential for contention over there, economic contention at least, when it comes to China and Russia in Kazakhstan?
I don't think about contentions right now between Russia and China. The roles have been pretty well divided.
Right.
Russia has the big guns, and China has the money. And actually, the Chinese do not feel like replacing Russia on the military front, and the Russians do not have the means to replace China on the economic front. What China needs in Kazakhstan is stability. Of course, if things stay a little uncertain in Kazakhstan, things will not fall apart right away. Of course, the gas pipeline that is passing by Kazakhstan is built in rather remote areas. So it will not stop working just because you have some tensions in the big cities. But still, in terms for the Belt and Road Initiative, to be able to use the 11 transcontinental roads passing by Kazakhstan to do business all over to Europe, there is a need of stability in Kazakhstan. And if Russia can help through its security forces and through its security alliance to make that happen, why not? There will be no issue from a Chinese point of view here. We should never forget that actually what cemented the relationship between China and Russia are the tensions with the US. So as long as you have tensions in the South China Sea, around Taiwan, and around Ukraine, for Russia and China, it would be better to work together than to oppose each other.
And just very quickly, what do you see as some of the knock-on effects on the surrounding economies? Because we've obviously got Iran, Uzbekistan, Afghanistan, and those areas as well. Do we see any kind of fallout for them in the midst of this unrest? Do we see it spilling over into the neighbors?
Well, the thing is, Kazakhstan has been a place where migrants from Central Asia have the tendency to go because they are more comfortable in Central Asia than in Russia itself. Racism was less strong. The economic possibilities were still real, but it is fair to imagine that this market will be more and more closed for migrant workers coming from Uzbekistan or from Kyrgyzstan, and to make sure that the Kazakh workers have also a possibility to find work, especially at the lower level of society. So this will have an economic impact on the other countries nearby. Broadly speaking, there is a feeling of uncertainty. Seeing the most stable Central Asian country being shaken that strongly, that quickly, for international investors, it is pretty disturbing. And I can understand that some of them will see the whole area as pretty dangerous between Afghanistan, between the tensions with Russia, maybe a little radioactive, and will not want to invest there, which will be a pity. We saw Kazakhstan developing pretty spectacularly the last few years. It has its difficulties, but it is also a very interesting market. But now is the role of the Kazakh government to make sure that the international community see Kazakhstan as attractive as a market and for investment.
Obviously, we'll have to keep our eyes peeled for that. Didier, thank you so much for joining us again.
You're welcome.
That's it from us here on All About Money. We'll see you again next week.